Thanks for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming a life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first is we want you to know that you are not alone in whatever life topic you are facing, that we together will help you through and work together to help you overcome anything that you are encountering. Our second objective is to let you know that there are multiple solutions to any life topic that you may be encountering, that when we work together, we'll be able to think into and think through the life situation you're encountering and come up with multiple solutions. Our third objective is if you are experiencing something that was a result of a decision that if you could redo life, you would reach a different decision. We want to help you with critical thinking skills to help you think into and come up with better solutions after having reviewed all the facts and factors. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. We, the Cooper Culture, are sponsoring this Overcomers Overcoming podcast series. Today we feature Kathy Kasten for the 5th episode of her podcast series, where she talks to us about energizing and recharging ourselves, how we can, by understanding ourselves and exactly what our needs are, we can help avoid burnout. Marty, what are some takes that our listeners can listen for?
Ron, I really appreciate how Kathy explained the importance of coming away from and taking a break from your business that you're trying to build, your workload, if you're working for yourself or if you're working for another company, how you need to come away and take a break to re-energize yourself, because this will not only help you, it helps your family, your friends, your co-workers, your health. And Kathy explains it in detail and is very good about explaining it to you.
Burnout is very prevalent amongst some people. They are overtasked, they take on too many things, and it's not until possibly you're engaged in a conversation with another person that you just take an introspective look of life and how you're approaching life, business, and so forth. Let's listen together to many of the factors that Kathy has to offer to help avoid burnout and to energize and recharge ourselves. Kathy, thank you very much for joining us again. And for our listeners who are new to Kathy Kasten, we have had 5 episodes of Kathy and want to encourage all of our listeners to listen to each one of those episodes where Kathy has overcome a lot of life challenges, and she has pivoted because of the life challenges that she's been given. Rather than feeling she's a victim, she has taken everything as an opportunity, and based on her progress and overcoming, she is helping others to do the same thing. Kathy, we and our listeners are very interested in your insights on energy and recharging. The most recent episode had to do with overcoming some life challenges, focusing, staying away from distractions. It was briefly mentioned about the shiny object syndrome, to where we can be easily distracted and maybe end up being stuck. But with your help, Kathy, you've helped us to redefine purpose and just how we can define our strengths and personality insights and so forth, and very interested in your perspective on energy and being recharged now that we have a new purpose, and how can we go about getting a new start on life. Over to you, Kathy.
Oh, boy, this is a fun topic and one I'm excited to talk about. One of the things I want to say as a comment about the priorities, just to kind of launch this off, is if you are listening and you're saying, well, I don't know if I'm living in my priorities or not, the first thing I would say to you is look at how you spend your time and where the money in your checkbook goes. Those are really quick, fast indicators about where you're spending your energy. So they can kind of give you a quick magnifying glass look at what's happening. But here's the thing that I know. Once we determine, or at least think we determine, a first step, or we start to get out on new ground that's hard, we can get tired quite quickly. And one of the mistakes I see people make over and over is that they don't take time to recharge. We have this image of taking time for ourselves as a selfish need. And the analogy that I would like to share maybe to help with that is, imagine that you have a wonderful car and you want to go somewhere, but when you go to get in the car, there's no gas left in it. So there you are, stuck in the garage. What I see happen quite often is people will burn so much energy, even if it's something that is in their purpose and something they love, that all of a sudden the car is out of gas. You cannot serve others and you cannot be your best if you don't have gas in your own tank. And that was a big mind shift even for me. So I'm not talking about throwing everything out and all you do is lay in the spas, days on end. I'm not talking about that. But there are all kinds of little things that we can do, and I really break energy into two pieces. One is the big energy recharges, things like a vacation or a time off where you're going to go and do something really meaningful. But then there are, and I think these are maybe even more important, lots of daily little recharges. So when I'm working with clients, we talk a lot about daily recharges, and I can share with you maybe in this podcast today some of the ways we go about identifying those and then how they get implemented into daily life.
How do we recharge? It sounds like, Kathy, what you're saying also is to be able to give to somebody, we can't continuously give without feeding ourselves, and that's a part of recharging. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes. There is a point at which if you are exhausted, burned out, tired, crabby, imagine what you're able to give someone else. And even the things that you love that you're doing yourself are not going to be at a high level if you're exhausted, right? I think common sense, we just all know that. And so making sure that we take time to recharge bodily, physically, and also mentally so that we are at our best for whether it's something we're working on ourselves or for someone else, that we can give the highest value. If you're going to spend the time, make it worthwhile. And the way to do that is to make sure that you have the right amount of energy for whatever it is you want to approach.
Kathy, I want to ask, there are many people, and I'm going to say especially these that go, I just have to be doing something all the time. And if there's a lull in the activity, then I'm not productive. So how do you work with those that are of this type personality? How do you get them to think, I've got to recharge?
Let me just translate this for you and our listeners. How can you help my husband?
Okay, Ron, we're ready.
No, we're turning to you, Kathy. Marty's asking you, Kathy, how can you help my husband?
Well, it's kind of a funny question because, as the two of you know, I think I share a strength of both of yours, so maybe that's good. Maybe that's going to help us bridge that gap. So I am also a highly driven person, part of my strong characteristic, and so I totally understand my worth oftentimes in the past was identified by I'm just so busy, right? And there's always a goal. I think I would go insane without a goal because I'm built to have goals. So what I would say is for people that are really driven, again, I'm going to go back to the comment, and it took me a long time to learn this, so trust me when I say this didn't happen overnight for me either. You need to understand that in order to reach your goals, you have to have the energy to get there. So again, let's go back to the really simple illustration of the car. If I want to travel to a different place in the country, but I have no energy to get there, I'll never see that place in the country. So I have to understand, yes, let's say I want to go to the Grand Canyon, great, but if I don't go to the gas station first, and driving is the way I'm going to get there, it isn't going to matter. I'm never going to see the Grand Canyon. And if I walk, it's going to take me so long, I'm going to be too old to appreciate it by the time I get there. So it's really important to reframe that as my goal is because these are driven people, are very goal-oriented. My goal is to serve people at the highest levels. In order for me to achieve that, I have to include these energizing steps. That is now one of my tasks as a task person. I literally, personally schedule time on my calendar for meetings for myself. And that may sound crazy to some people that are listening, because if you're not wired this way, that won't make any sense. But I need to put myself on as a priority and schedule time that I am going to do a certain relax, or I'm going to make sure that there's 30 minutes in between one meeting to the next so that I have time to go eat something or go. Sometimes I call them power naps. I used to work with an executive who called them high-level meetings. Sometimes I will take 20 minutes and go sleep before my next client, because that will give me just that quick little amount of recharge that I need in order to keep moving. And again, it's about, my goal is to serve at the highest levels. If I'm not rested, I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to serve at that same level. So does that help, Marty? Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it does, very much.
What I'm reading into what you're saying is, I know who I am, I know what I need, and I need to schedule myself, my priorities, such that there is an inviolate time where I need that uninterrupted to recharge, that whatever time of day, whatever day of the week, whatever it is, I know myself well enough to know this is what I need right at this time for me to be able to function at my best. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, and I don't want to scare everybody who doesn't love scheduling, because there are a lot of you out there. I think I'm going to give you some examples that will maybe be helpful. As you said, understanding who we are and our natural wiring, what we need. Some people need recharge time alone. Other people recharge by being around people. So recognizing that and realizing, maybe I recharge by making a list. Maybe I recharge by reading a magazine. So one of the things that I do with clients quite often is I have a sheet that they fill out, and I call it strengths, gifts, interests, and abilities. And we jot down all kinds of things. And so the first things that everybody usually thinks of is, okay, I'm an IT person for a living, or things like that. And the career is certainly a part of that list. But for me, I really then start to push them. What about your favorite hobbies? What about your favorite books? Do you like to go on vacation? Where do you go? So you may end up with things on that list like nature, cross-stitching, bird watching, the beach, different things that are parts of what make you you and make you really unique. Now, why does that matter? Because when we start to talk about your day, we can start to wire that in. Let me give you an illustration with a client that I worked with. She is a very high-level nurse anesthetist. She works very long, hard hours. You can imagine with COVID that's been very difficult. She loves the beach. And so one of the things we did in her workspace, she was not able to get the time to take off all of her work clothing, as you can imagine, for an operating room, and go outside during her break. She didn't get a long enough break because with COVID, they have so many layers that it would take too long to get dressed and undressed and all the extra items that she wears. So how do we recharge her in the middle of her day? Well, one of the things she loved is the beach. So we went out and we found some beach YouTube videos or Spotify songs or things that played. You can find these where they're sounds of being on the beach. Sometimes they're on 4-hour loops or whatever. And what we did is she would actually, and this is going to sound a little crazy, she would actually take a 2-minute break in between patients, and she would go somewhere quiet and she would play that beach sound. That was a huge recharge for her, and it started to really help her reframe her energy. When she didn't have a big chunk of time, she couldn't get on a plane and fly to a beach, but she could listen to one, which took her to a really happy space in her mind, and it gave her recharge. So building in little tiny things, I tell people at your desk, whether you work at home or, if you have a space that you work in an office building, put some things there that really matter to you. I have a little tiny piece of leather from my grandfather's leatherworking shop because when I was a child, he did work with saddles and bridles and tooling. And it's very tactile. I can touch it, feel it, and it makes me smile, and I can pick it up. I'm holding it right now while I'm talking to you. It brings me very happy, warm memories. I have some quotes by my desk. I have some photos of my family by my desk. Different things that I encourage people to have something near you, especially in your workspace, that brings you joy. And that could be a rock you found. I have some dried flowers in a frame that one of my grandchildren gave me. I just love that, and it makes me smile every time I look at it. Those little tiny quick recharges can be very powerful, and think of it like a marathon runner. When you see them run, they will have recharge stations along the route, and someone runs out and gives them water, or they run up to a table and grab a water. We have to recharge like that daily. Don't wait and say my recharge is going to be that 1 week vacation in 6 months, because you're going to be so burned out by the time you get there, and that 1 week of vacation will not carry you through a whole year. So you need to build in, besides that vacation, the little things that are going to give you strength and energy, like a quick nap or a jacuzzi bath or a warm shower or a walk in your neighborhood. Or sometimes I'm a big cat lover, so petting a cat, 5-10 seconds really lifts my spirits. It makes me happy to hear them purr. So things like that can really be powerful in bringing energy into your space and helping you to just stay on top of your game. Does that help?
It does. I think what you're saying as well, if we don't program this into our schedule, if we're not disciplined enough to do this, we are likely going to be subject to burnout. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. Burnout, we have, I think, this tendency to think things are happening to us, and there's certainly truth to that, but we can minimize that even in the high stress times. And in fact, I suggest to my clients that those high stress times are when you even need to build in more of these, which seems totally opposite of what you would think. If you're under a heavy, big deadline, schedule in 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes and go do something totally unrelated. Clear your head, get recharged, come back at it. I used to make the mistake when I was younger. I would try to power through those overwhelm, exhaustion moments. And all that would happen is things that should have taken me 15 or 20 minutes would take me 2 hours. I would finish, but I was exhausted, and it probably wasn't my best work. I have now learned when I hit one of those mental moments where I'm feeling really exhausted, that if I step away, and again, maybe it's one of those high-level meeting 20-minute naps, and come back, I will finish in way less time with a way better end. So in those moments, which I would guess happen probably 90 to 95% of the time in our life, when we have an option to schedule in some re-energize time, those moments we need to intentionally build into our day. I work very hard with my clients to make sure that they build in energy recharge every day.
We have a variety of listeners. I'm guessing that there may be some people who would say, I just need a heavy workout at whatever time of day. I need a 20-minute power nap. Some of us call it a combat nap. Some of us would say, hey, I just need to have a quiet environment with just some soothing music. Maybe I just need quiet time for 20 minutes to read. But is that a matter, Kathy, of knowing yourself, thoroughly knowing yourself and knowing exactly what it is you need to recharge, and then having the discipline to put that in your schedule to know exactly what it is you need to do so that you can operate at your peak efficiency and peak potential?
Yes, I think the discipline is definitely a huge part of it, and also giving yourself permission. Again, I think a lot of us deal with guilt, and I'm not talking about checking out of your 8-hour work job, for 8 hours a day to recharge. I'm not talking about that, but taking those little tiny moments, giving yourself permission, I'm going to do a better job when I do that, or I'm going to be able to serve people at a higher level when I do that. That's so important to keep front and center in your mind and to make it a priority, because it will help you to do the very things that you love the most. So I think that's very important, both the discipline and the permission to take that time.
Is it so fair to say that we need to have a close enough friendship with a camaraderie with a person who can know who we are, they can read us, if you will, such that we have a relationship where they can tell us, Ron, Kathy, Marty, you need to, and then fill in the blank with whatever. And what I'm referring to, Kathy, is something to the effect of an accountability partner. Is that a fair assessment?
That certainly can be a big part of it. Again, because we're all wired differently, I think having that accountability partner, especially to give us a little signal that you might need a recharge moment, because often we don't recognize those ourselves. We may get tired and not be as aware that we're getting burned out or negative or stressed, and somebody around us to help us recognize that can be very helpful. I also think, and I would encourage the listeners, if you don't do anything else from today, from this podcast piece, take a piece of paper and for 10 minutes just sit down and jot out maybe the 3 gifts that you've gotten that have meant the most to you. Maybe something that was a very special moment that brings smiles to your face. Like I was mentioning my grandfather's leather shop when I was a child and seeing all of the saddles there. Just jot down a whole bunch of happy things. I love dogs. I love to see spring trees. I love books that are, interesting detective novels. I love spending time with my family during a barbecue. All of those types of things, even if you cannot live that moment. Maybe you say, I love Tahiti. Okay, maybe you can't go to Tahiti, but you can put a computer picture on your desktop of Tahiti. Or you can, find some music from there, things like that. So we can start to take those areas that energize you and find little pieces of them that we can build right into your normal life. One silly example I have is I have refrigerator magnets that I had made that have pictures of my family in them. So that's really nice. When I go to put something up on a magnetic surface, I see my family, and that makes me smile because that's something that recharges me. So that can be really helpful just to take that moment and think about, what food do I really enjoy? What person do I enjoy time with? What show do I like to watch? Just to start to I call that a brain dump, just to think about happy thoughts. And if you need some music behind you while you do that, just pop some on and jot them down. So that's an idea for them.
I think that's a very appropriate call to action, that if each of our listeners were to list those things that provide particular satisfaction to us, and is that what we need to help us recharge, to reinvigorate ourselves? Each one of us is subject to burnout, even if we think we're not, but we need that recharge time. That's a very helpful suggestion, and I would hope that our listeners would do just that to determine what it is that is a recharge moment for us, and to be able to focus on that and be able to pass that on to others.
I think that's a really great place to start. And I also want to say to the listeners that are out there that are not list people, and COVID has been really hard because you are people and you love being with all of your friends. Some parts of the country still have not opened up to the point where you can just have a natural gathering of people like you might enjoy. There are ways to find recharge even in that moment. So as an example, one of my clients who goes for walks now does a FaceTime with a friend, and they walk and talk on their phones since they cannot do it together in person yet. So there are ways to modify even the people side of things to help you to recharge at a level. And I would encourage you just to think about one little step you can do that's something you love that don't feel like you have to boil the ocean in a day. Take one thing on your recharge list and put it in your day and see what a difference that makes.
Great advice. I think what you said also is that we need to do what we can to avoid isolation, and COVID has a tendency to cause us to be isolated, but we need to develop relationships with each other to help us avoid that isolation, which can lead to some other adverse effects.
Yes, the isolation can be really hard. For some people, that is okay, and they don't mind isolation. Most people want to have other people around them, And so just recognizing that that's okay. And, maybe your recharge is to go out for a quick restaurant meal with a friend. That is certainly something that can be a recharge. Maybe it's something you're going to look forward to at the end of your workday that you can build in, or if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, to have something built in where, at the end of the week I'm going to go and have a meal with a friend of mine, or go golfing, or go for a walk, any of those kind of things, or we're going to meet at the park while the kids play and we talk. It can be little things that we look forward to. And then I would also say for those big recharges, which I do believe we also need, like a vacation or, some other kind of, maybe you want to go for a big training or things like that, I would also say stop talking about it and schedule it. That doesn't mean it can't change, but usually my husband and I at the beginning of the year will do kind of an overview planning session where we will talk about what are our big goals for the year. And if one of them is the vacation, the family vacation, which it usually is, we will start to choose dates for that immediately, even in January, and we will book that. We will start to think about where we're going to stay and, break that into pieces and build it. Because another thing that can happen is you can talk about these things and never do them. So if for instance, that a vacation is something you want to do this year, start to build it in and build space in your schedule for it, and then fight for that, and don't give up that space unless it's an emergency.
Well said. I think what would be a great topic, and I think you'd be the right person to talk about it, let's talk about accountability partner, or just say a close circle of friends who know us well enough to be able to talk with us very candidly to help us do what we need to do in our life, because they care enough about us to help us through any challenge we're going through, but to help us be the person who God created us to be. Can you join us for another episode?
I would be honored to do that. That's a topic that I think has really made a difference in my life, so I would love to talk about that.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. We will be with you on the next episode where we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
What thoughts do you have about energy, recharging, taking time off, just doing what you need to be able to perform at your peak? There are many of us who would say, I just don't think I have the time to do that. I'm going to ask you to take a very deep introspective look at this point and just ask yourself, can you continue doing what you're doing over a long period of time? Can you continue at the same pace you're working at whatever stress level you have? And ask yourself, can I continue this over whatever period of time that I would need to continue the income or whatever objectives you have for your company, yourself, whatever your life is. There's a possibility you may say, I just cannot afford to delegate, I cannot trust people, I cannot, and then fill in the blanks with whatever it might be. I know personally that some of these are excuses. I do know that you may be rationalizing those statements as reasons, but frequently they're excuses. They might be the excuse of the type that I don't know how to train my successor, I don't have a progression plan, I don't know what would need to be done to be able to fill in the blanks, where we have a team who is fully functional to be able to carry out the strategic objectives of my company or just my life. I want to ask you if there are things in the past that might be keeping you from doing whatever you feel you would like to do, but you feel you can't do because of, and then fill in the blanks with whatever. There are some of us who have been told in the past that we can't do, or there's something that is keeping us from operating at a full potential. That's where coaching comes in. Coaching is a very misunderstood discipline, not cheerleading, it's not mentoring, it is a discipline where we are able to help people overcome any challenges of the past, anything that is operating in the subconscious that, if not aware of, if not dealt with, will become dominating factors in your life. Carl Jung made that observation many years ago, and we know it to be true with too many people. If you are possibly experiencing some challenge in your life, I want to take this opportunity to ask you to take a very deep introspective look and just ask yourself, are there some things you know need to be changed in your life, but you're hesitant to go about those changes because of maybe some past failures, because of some statements made to you, because of some hesitation? You feel you can't trust somebody. There's a host of reasons that would keep you from doing what you feel you need to do, but then juxtaposing those thoughts, you're thinking, I really can't continue at the pace I'm going without making some changes. Let's get together. Let's talk about coaching, how that may benefit your life, how coaching can help you overcome any inhibitions from the past that are keeping you from doing what you know you can do, what needs to be done to help you operate at a higher level in your life. Let's talk about this. And there are many people who have benefited from coaching. Everybody needs a coach. We are certified in life coaching. We are DISC personality certified. We are able to help you identify your strengths, where you have blind spots, where you can function best in life, and we can help you sort through any number of things that might keep you from operating at a full potential. Even if you're operating at a good potential, everybody can benefit from a coach. We want to have that opportunity to talk with you and see how we can help you with anything in life that would help advance you, your staff, your business, those with whom you're within your circle of influence. Call us at 410-586-1875 or send an email to Ron at thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Let's work together and let's be a benefit to others. Let's help others advance so that we are all operating at our full potential and we're advancing others to reach the state that God has designed us to be. We look forward to working with you.